Okay, let's move on to the next point. Obstruction at the ruck and in the defensive line. Now again, this is something that has got progressively worse over time, and one where we need to enforce the existing rule. And a penalty may be awarded if a player takes up a position near the play of the ball and, in the opinion of the referee, obstructs a defender regardless of whether there is physical contact. So there's another example that I'll show you in a moment which goes to the second point. In general play, if a player stands in the defensive line or is in front of the play of the ball and, in the opinion of the referee, obstructs a defender regardless of whether there is physical contact. So let's have a look at some examples, and I'll go again slowly with these, but we'll stop it at the important point here. We'll go back just to the play the ball. So you can see the player with the ball's getting up, and you can see that two players have arrived right beside the ruck. That's from the team in possession. So you've got, as we go to the wide shot, you can see we've got a player here and a player here who have moved to a position directly adjacent to the ruck. Now, there are two markers, and of course the referee has to ensure that the markers remain square. That's part of the referee's job in every ruck. But these players stand in that position, and then we'll see what happens when we advance the footage further. The ball gets played, and the players who are chasing the markers, you can see one goes either side. The player that's coming this side, he has to run around those two players. Now, that in itself creates an obstruction to a player who's not in possession of the ball. Now, there is no requirement for these players to stand in any particular position. They don't have to be a certain number of metres behind the ruck, but there is also a rule that talks about deliberately obstructing another player who's not in possession of the ball. So in this scenario, if players are forming that kind of blocking action, and the referee believes that that player who's chasing has been obstructed, the referee can award a penalty for it. Now we'll go to another example. Okay, in this particular example, again there are two players that have moved to that position, but you'll notice there's a bit of a gap between these two players. That doesn't make any difference if the referee again believes that these players have created an obstruction. So we'll let the footage run on here, and you can see again that chaser who's coming towards the number 8, he has to actually jink around number 8 to chase the ball. So again, the referee can determine that that's an obstruction. And if it goes to the bunker can determine that that's an obstruction and can penalise for that. So it's a case-by-case scenario. There may be occasions where players are in that vicinity but there's no obstruction created. It might be the chasers go a different direction or they don't even chase. But if the referee forms the view that there is an obstruction that has impacted on a defending player, then a penalty can be awarded. Now, the second point that was on that previous slide is a different type of obstruction. And we'll have a look at this particular incident. I might let this run in normal speed first. So you can see the play the ball straight through the defensive line, makes a long break. A lot of ground is gained in this particular run. But let's go back and see what happens. Now, this will more often than not happen from a kick, and so the receiving team get the ball, and the players from his own team are very slow coming back. And what they do in some cases is they get themselves in the middle of the defensive line. Now, you can see 1, 2, 3 players who are in the defensive line and creating a lot of obstruction in that defensive line, and it's between those players, if I let the play go on, that the break is made straight through because of the interference that was created by the players from the team in possession who was standing in the defensive line. So two types of interference in the ruck. The first one is where the players take up a position immediately beside the ruck, and the one we've just looked at is where players who are coming back onside stand in the defensive line and create an obstruction. And in each of these cases, the referees can determine that that is worthy of a penalty.